In a quiet town, where the roads were uneven and dreams often felt unfinished, lived a boy named Ayaan. From the outside, he seemed like any other teenager with thin shoulders, thoughtful eyes, and a silence that often spoke louder than words. But inside him, a constant storm of self-doubt was raging. Ayaan believed one thing with all his heart. He was not good enough. At school, he chose the last bench, not because a teacher put him there, but because he felt that's where he belonged. His classmates seemed so confident. Some were amazing at sports, others were academic geniuses, and many were popular and admired by everyone. Ayaan, on the other hand, felt completely invisible. He wasn't the smartest, the fastest, or the funniest. He stammered when he got nervous. His grades were just average, and he avoided eye contact as if looking into someone's eyes might expose every single one of his weaknesses. Every mistake he made felt like a spotlight on his failures. When he didn't pass a test, his first thought was, anyone else would have done better. When he dropped the ball during a game, he would whisper to himself, I ruin everything. If he heard someone laughing nearby, he instantly assumed they were laughing at him. At home, Ayaan was just as quiet. His parents loved him deeply, but they were always busy, trying to make ends meet. They would praise him when he did well, but they never saw how deeply his failures wounded him. Ayaan never shared his pain. He was convinced his struggles were his burden to carry alone. Late at night he would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, asking himself the same painful questions over and over. Why can't I be like them? Why am I always falling behind? Why am I so imperfect? He was convinced that perfection was the ticket to being valued. And since he was far from perfect, he believed he didn't deserve confidence, or happiness, or even dreams. But what Ayaan didn't know is that the very things he hated about himself would one day become the key to discovering his true worth. One afternoon, the school announced a story writing competition. The winner would get to represent the school at the regional level. As the teacher encouraged everyone to participate, Ayaan immediately looked down at his desk. He did like to write, but only in private. He kept an old, worn-out notebook where he poured all his feelings into words that no one else ever saw. Suddenly, a voice boomed from the front of the class. Sir, one of the confident students said, Ayaan writes sometimes. Maybe you should give it a try. A few students chuckled, not in a cruel way, but carelessly. It didn't matter. Ayaan's face burned with embarrassment. In that moment, he wished he could just disappear. That evening, he found himself sitting alone on a bench near a small, quiet park, his notebook resting on his lap. His fingers trembled as he stared at the blank page. The voice inside his head grew louder, more insistent. You'll fail. Your story won't be good enough. You're not talented enough. Just then, an old man approached and sat on the bench next to him. His hair was silver, his clothes were simple, and his eyes were calm, the kind of eyes that seemed to have seen many storms pass. You look like someone who is having a fierce argument with himself, the man said, his voice gentle. Ayaan hesitated, but then the words spilled out. I'm not good at anything, he said quietly. I try, but I always fall short. Everyone else is just better. The old man smiled softly. Do you know why a cracked cup can still hold water? He asked. Ayaan just looked at him, confused. The man continued, because its cracks don't take away its purpose. They just add character. Ayaan frowned, not quite understanding. The old man then pointed to the notebook in his lap. Write what hurts you, he advised. Don't write what you think is perfect. That night, for the very first time, Ayaan didn't try to write something impressive. He didn't try to be clever or profound. He wrote about his fear of being invisible, his shame over his mistakes, and his deep, aching longing to feel like he was worthy. His words were raw, imperfect, and completely honest. The next day, with his hands shaking and his expectations at rock bottom, he submitted his story. Days turned into a week. Ayaan tried not to think about it. He had already prepared himself for the familiar feeling of disappointment. Then, the day of the announcement came. His teacher stood at the front of the classroom, a wide smile on her face. Ayaan, she said, your story has been selected as the winner. The entire room went silent. Ayaan froze in his seat. Sir, "There must be a mistake," he stammered. "There is no mistake," the teacher replied. "Your story touched people. It was real." And for the first time in his life, Ayaan was surrounded by applause, not for being perfect, but for being honest. At the regional competition, Ayaan stood on a huge stage, his heart pounding in his chest. As he began to read his story aloud, he looked out at the audience and saw something he never expected. He saw people wiping tears from their eyes. He saw them nodding and understanding. They were listening. Truly listening. After the event, one of the judges approached him. "Your story reminded all of us that perfection is just an illusion," she said warmly. "Thank you for your courage." Courage? That one word echoed in his mind. In that moment, Ayaan realized something incredibly powerful. The very things he thought made him weak his fears. His insecurities, his imperfections, were the exact things that made his voice meaningful. That day didn't magically erase all of Ayaan's insecurities. He still made mistakes. He still had moments of failure. He still doubted himself from time to time. But now, something fundamental had changed within him. He no longer saw imperfection as proof of his worthlessness. He saw it as proof of being human. Ayaan learned that self-worth isn't something you earn by becoming perfect. It's something you discover by accepting who you are. He started to speak up more in class, to try new things, to fear failure a little less. Not because he suddenly believed he was false, but because he finally accepted that nobody is. He came to understand a few simple, yet profound truths. That perfection is a myth that only steals your confidence. That mistakes are not labels that define you, but lessons that guide you. That your self-worth is never decided by comparing yourself to others. And that being real is infinitely more powerful than pretending to be perfect. Years later, Ayaan would often share his story with others, saying, "I spent most of my life hating myself for not being perfect until I realized perfection was never the goal. And in that simple realization, he finally found peace. Because nobody is perfect, and that is exactly what makes every single one of us worthy." Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who might need to hear it. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that inspires and uplifts. See you in the next video.